I was talking to a friend who had just done a presentation at a teacher conference, and she had demonstrated an activity where kids used lots of creative thinking, did lots of creative work, and she was challenged by a teacher. The teacher said, "Why would I do these creative activities in my classroom? They take so much time. How do I actually know that they're going to work, that they're actually going to produce results?" I thought it was a valid question, and it got me to thinking, how do we know? I mean, there's a huge push in education right now to have kids use their creative capacities in class, whether it's visual art and music, all the way to creating things on the computer and doing web design. For decades, constructivism has encouraged us to make meaning by creating, but not everybody totally buys into it. I mean, we don't want to waste our kids' time doing things that won't benefit them. So how do we really know in the end? There are several things that show us that it works, and the first is dual coding theory, which suggests that the brain interprets text and images very differently. So when you add the creative work of images and put it together with text, it can produce very strong associations in the brain. Research shows that dual coding theory can play major roles in various educational domains like comprehension, memory, instruction, and more. Then there's the idea of elaboration, which plays together so nicely with the idea of creating to learn. On their blog, the learning scientists describe elaboration as explaining and describing ideas with many details. Elaboration also involves making connections among ideas you are trying to learn and connecting material to your own experiences, memories, and day-to-day life. This plays together perfectly with making creative work, because if you can take what you've been learning, all of those details, all of that information, and you can make sense of it by creating something, if it's a word web or a sketch note or some other kind of creation, and it all makes sense in your brain, then it's more likely to stick in your brain long term. So elaboration, more evidence that creative work works. Another great benefit of creative work is that it's easily shareable. So imagine a student has been working on something, planning on it, tinkering with it until she finally gets it exactly right. And she looks at it and she thinks, wow, this is great. I can't wait to show other people what it is that I've made. And so what does she do? She starts showing it to family and friends, maybe takes pictures of it and posts it to social media. And you can imagine that students who do that kind of work, who want to share it to an audience, are going to do their best work more often than if they're just doing it to an audience of one, the teacher. And finally, doing creative work is a skill of the future. Creativity and communication skills make the list of attributes that employers want the most in new hires. And as we do more and more electronic work, these skills are going to have to become increasingly crucial as we move forward. So if we want students to be prepared for this future that we have such a hard time envisioning, we've got to let them do creative work. So why do we do that creative work? If we still have doubts ourselves and are trying to convince ourselves, or if we're trying to convince other people, I think it all comes down to three things. First, there's just the sheer joy in creating and making something. Second, doing creative work is very brain friendly. If we want stuff to stick in our brains, creative work will help. And finally, creative work is highly shareable. And if we're making something for bigger than an audience of just ourselves or our teacher, we're bound to do much better work than if we did it otherwise. So in the end, if you're still wondering, should I do this creative work? It's okay. It really is. It's going to help kids.